Good afternoon, my fellow investor friends. So, there are a lot of publicly traded companies on the different exchanges throughout the world. Thousands upon thousands, as a matter of fact. So, the task of figuring out which ones are worth researching, let alone buying, can be a bit of a headache and a little daunting for most retail investors, especially if you're planning on choosing individual companies. It's hard to know where to start. And one common piece of advice people get out there that I really don't like all that much is, oh, hey, just choose companies that sell the products you like. You know, if you like going to McDonald's, buy their stock. If you like going to Starbucks, buy their stock. If you like Coke Zero, go buy Coca-Cola stock. I think that type of reasoning basically encourages you to bring your biases and emotions to the table when it comes to evaluating companies, right? I think, even for myself, if I'm evaluating the stock of, this, Coca-Cola company, when I love one or more of their products, I'm probably going to look at it with some kind of rose-tinted glasses and maybe be willing to pay more of a premium than what they deserve. So people do that, I think, with things like Apple and their people who love their iPhones. If they invest in Apple, I think they're probably a little bit looser with what kind of a price they'll pay. Tesla is another one. People love their Tesla. There are like just legions of people who absolutely love those cars, and while that's great, and it may mean that they're a great company that makes great cars, it doesn't necessarily mean the price is great. And the same is really true for any other company that sells any other product. Now, what I like to do personally is I like to say, okay, I'm going to just etch a sketch on my brain here. I'm going to forget any preconceptions about any companies. Instead, I'm going to start with the numbers. And from a process of elimination based on numbers, I'm going to decide how to narrow things down to what companies I want to look at more closely. So if you look up free stock screeners, you can get the one on Yahoo Finance. Now, there are some features on here you would have to pay for to get access to, but that's not necessary to really, at least begin this process, okay? So I kind of have like a pretty basic, like, oh, I'm let's say my objective with my portfolio is just a standard boring dividend growth portfolio, okay? Which, as they say, ladies love dividends, so it doesn't hurt to be a dividend investor these days. Now, we left the region as United States, so these would be US-based corporations. Debt to EBITDA of less than 5. That's just kind of a reasonable debt level, depending on what your view is on debts on companies. A lot of people like that 5 number there for that one. And hey, market cap over $1 billion. This kind of just weeds out a lot of those really small companies that might just be absurdly volatile or difficult to research. And we went with a PE of less than 20 because I think, once you get into the 20s, you're really looking at mostly more so, I think, growth companies or companies that are just like potentially overvalued for some of the reasons I stated earlier. And, we went with a forward starting yield of over 3%. And that's, kind of just like, hey, maybe this person has some kind of a goal for FIRE, or maybe they're, a few years away from retirement, so they need that starting yield to be a little bit higher. So you go to find the stocks, and it's down to 805 from the thousands we had. Now, you might be saying, hey, 805, it's really still a little bit much to research. Well, that's true, but you could just start looking at the list, pick out the companies that you at least understand. Like, I think everybody understands the pharmaceutical business. They create, research, market, and sell, different types of medications. Okay, that's pretty easy to understand. I think We all understand that medicine is needed, and people will be buying it for a long time. Cisco, a networking solutions company. I mean, I think they've been around forever. I used to have an old Cisco router back in the day. Verizon, hey, they're a phone company. You might be a subscriber to Verizon, even if you use a track phone. Actually, they own that. So I think most people have at least heard of Verizon. Philip Morris International, tobacco company. Okay, so a lot of things that kind of jump out as like, okay, we understand these might be worth a closer look, but hey, I get it. Maybe this is still too many companies. The list is too damn long. Okay, well, what can we do to narrow it down a little further? We could say, hey, you know what? Interest rates are kind of high right now. I don't feel comfortable with this debt 5 times EBITDA number. Well, okay. How about we cut it in half so that we can kind of adjust for the rising interest rates? Well, there we go. This whittles it down quite a lot, doesn't it? We just lost a couple hundred off of that list. So, okay. You might be saying, but hey, even 542 is a lot of different companies. Well, sure. Okay. Well, let's say we're also, really value conscious. We want something that's on sale. We don't want to look at companies unless they're under a 15 price to earnings ratio. Well, that drops it down again a little bit here to 462. Now, let's say, okay, but hey, I think that there's other criteria that might also align with my objectives. Let's see if we can find another screening metric here to really help us zero in on where we want to be in the next 5 or 10 years. Okay, well, how about we add the metric for dividend growth, okay? And we decide, hey, I only want companies that have 10 years or more of consecutive dividend growth. Well, what did that one extra metric just do to our list? It went ahead and dropped it from hundreds down to just 18. Now, I think it would be pretty simple to say, hey, from this 18, there's at least a couple on here that are at the very least worth researching and, potentially at a good value to buy and add to the portfolio. Now, you might also be saying, hey, you know what? I'm seeing this list. I'm kind of, taking a closer look at some of these companies. I'm not really liking what I'm seeing here. You might say, well, hey, what's another thing on here that maybe we could tweak a little bit? Well, we might say, hey, you know what? Actually, I care more about that growth metric now that we've got that in there, and maybe I don't need my starting yield to be so high. So maybe we drop that to a starting yield of 2, and we just gained 11 more companies to look at, okay? So really what this process is about, it's about starting at the very, very zoomed out level of, hey, these 3 or 4 things are pretty important to me and align with my goals. And then as you look at what results it gives you, narrowing the criteria down further, and then having a much, much shorter list of companies to look at. And to me, I think that is a process that makes a little bit more sense than just, researching companies because you like their product, essentially. So let me know what you think. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this, I really appreciate on a personal level when you guys debate me or discuss with me in the comments and let me know what you think, good or bad. Really love your likes and subscribes. They motivate me to keep on going. So I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Happy Friday. Peace.